remaining inward. Let's listen to this affirmation for self-healing by Swami Kriyananda. And this week is on introspection. People commonly delude themselves with easy rationalizations. Maybe I wasn't as kind as I might have been, they'll say, but wouldn't you have been unkind too if he treated you that way? It wasn't my fault. The fault was theirs. Thus, the blame for every wrong is placed at one's neighbor's door. Introspection means to behold oneself from a center of inner calmness, without the slightest mental bias, open to what may be wrong in oneself, not excusing it, but not condemning either. Introspection means referring what one sees to the superconscious mind and detachedly accepting guidance when it comes. We'll now do the affirmation together. So please do repeat aloud from home after me. I am what I am.
I am what I am.
Wishing cannot change me.
Wishing cannot change me.
Let me therefore
face
my faults with gratitude.
Face my faults with gratitude.
For only by facing them,
by only facing them,
can I work on them.
Can I work on them.
And change them.
And change them.
And now a bit softer in a speaking voice. I am what I am.
I am what I am.
Wishing cannot change me.
Wishing cannot change me.
Let me therefore
face
my faults with gratitude.
Face my faults with gratitude.
For only by facing them,
by only facing them,
can I work on them.
Can I work on them.
And change them.
And change them.
And now a little bit quieter in a whisper. I am what I am.
I am what I am.
Wishing cannot change me.
Wishing cannot change me.
Let me therefore face my faults.
Let me therefore face my faults.
With gratitude.
With gratitude.
For only by facing them.
Only by facing them.
Can I work on them.
Can I work on
them. And change them.
And change them.
And now silently, mentally affirming, feeling this at the point between the eyebrows as you send it out as a broadcast from your soul to the divine. I am what I am. Wishing cannot change me. Let me therefore face my faults with gratitude. For only by facing them can I work on them and change them. And now feeling this prayer for introspection. Let me not delude myself with desires, Lord. Teach me to see behind the play of my thoughts thy ever calm gaze of wisdom. Om. Thanks for being here today, everyone, and for just taking the time to go deeper, whatever day of the week it might be, but to be together to study this path and these teachings. So we'll start with our weekly reading from Rays of the One Light, the commentaries based on the Bible and the Bhagavad Gita. And this is week 23 of our year. I think that's exactly halfway. Because 56. Oh, no, I have my math wrong. Never mind, everyone. Why do devotees fall? But we're coming close. Truth is one and eternal. Realize oneness with it in your deathless self within. The following commentary is based on the teachings of Paramhansa Yogananda. An endlessly fascinating question is, why did Judas fall after receiving the extraordinary blessing of being accepted into the inner circle of Jesus Christ's disciples? For Judas was one of the 12 apostles, yet he betrayed Jesus. and earned for himself the opprobrium of Christendom for all futurity for his sin. We find Judas reprimanding Jesus just days before that betrayal. Jesus, aware that his disciples would soon be facing, with his death, the supreme tragedy of their lives, allowed Mary to express her devotion by anointing his feet with costly ointment. This act of wanton waste, as Judas saw it, awakened indignation in that disciple. Why was not this ointment sold for 300 pence and given to the poor? This he said, not that he cared for the poor, but because he was a thief, and kept the purse, and bare what was put therein. Then said Jesus, Let her alone. Against the day of my burying hath she kept this. For the poor always ye have with you, but me ye have not always. Doubt, not the power of delusion. Respect it, indeed, fear it, though not in the sense of cowering before it. For as Yogananda said, one is not safe until they attain nirvikalpa samadhi, the state of final union with God. Judas, through attachment to money, opened his consciousness to subtle influences, which may be called satanic. That drew his thoughts toward other related attitudes, the importance of worldly power, for instance, and of worldly influence. The Bhagavad Gita gives a graphic explanation of how easily the mind can be drawn downward once it begins to feed on wrong attitudes. In the second chapter, Sri Krishna states, if one ponders on sense objects, there springs up attraction to them. From attraction grows desire. Desire, impatient for fulfillment, flames to anger. From anger, there arises infatuation, the delusion that one object alone is worth clinging to the exclusion of all others. From infatuation ensues forgetfulness of the higher self. From forgetfulness of the self follows degeneration of the discriminative faculty. And when discrimination is lost, there follows the annihilation of one's spiritual life. At the first thought of delusion, Paramhansa Yogananda said, that is the time to stop it. Thus, through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind. Om.
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 Welcome, everyone. What a really powerful week this is. And something we can always take away from. How does a devotee fall? And I think we're pretty simple. Just, Judas, interesting stories, and that he's well known for all the wrong things, but we also forget that he actually was a very devoted, and according to Yogananda, was a very, very, very devoted disciple of Jesus, and how easy it was to fall. I think Yogananda even mentioned somewhere that he later went to India and got released and was
Not that many lifetimes late.
free a little bit later on. So I think it's a pretty simple message this week. Don't be like Judas. That's it. No, it's kind of an interesting story, because if you think about, we always say go inward, and we think about creation in its truest form, and creation started with the vibration. So therefore we know there's this tube, essentially, if looking at it from different, filled with light and darkness, and we know the pendulum of light and darkness. But to be light, there's always the dark side of, or the shadow side of existence. And interesting enough, just to make things even easier for us, we have gravity. And of course, the darkness and the heaviness is a lot easier to be pulled down and in. And we have to change our energy from gravity. So gravity ultimately is an outward form, an outward pull to everything that we have in existence. And, I was thinking about that even as we meditated today. It was kind of interesting, isn't it? Because the minute we sit to meditate, our goal is to go inward and upward during meditation. And it's very easy in meditation to get caught up with, oh, geez, I wish I had a more comfortable chair. Uh, I wish my surroundings were a bit better. Imagine if I had the right altar. Do you think if I had the right altar, I could sit and meditate a little bit better? Uh, oh, geez, I'm hungry. Maybe I should have eaten before I meditated. Does that sound familiar? Just on that point of sitting and being still, it is so easy to get drawn backward and down and out. And it's the story of Judas, isn't it? He was a devotee that sat and got tied up with the do I need a better altar? Do I need a temple? Do I need the perfect outward pull? And thought that becomes the delusion of how we move forward inward and upwards. If we sit still enough and quiet enough and still our mind, we have access to all the joy, all the happiness, all the wisdom, all the light, all the sound that we can possibly take. But it's fighting that downward gravity pull to outward things. That is that story that was within this. It's the fall that is spoken of. Sense objects, something sparks then. We sit in meditation, we get hungry. We're thinking, wow, I could have done with breakfast. Then we think emotionally, wow, can't believe you didn't do breakfast. Next thing you know, our emotion goes down. It's like, oh, you've got to be better at time. Yes, I've got to be much better at time. And you start building this downward spiral, which is described this week, in anger. And then our emotions come into it and our feelings come into it. Likewise, it doesn't necessarily have to be negative. It can be great. Oh, geez, I had a great meditation. I had the perfect $500 noise cancelling headphones, and boy, that was quiet. I could sit quietly. Next thing you know, we've got this amazing sound. And it just reminds me of a story that Swami talks about when he first bought Ananda and he had some devotees that lived there and he was out earning money. And he said, I had no intentions ever of being involved in money. And he talks about that all the time. He didn't want to be involved in money, but he had to learn about taxes and he was out working and earning money. And one day he came back to Ananda, this place that he was, hoping to grow. And all these people were sitting around being true yogis. They were doing what? They were reflecting there and thinking how beautiful this place is. They were sitting around meditating and chanting. And Swami said, well, we all have to be working here. And they thought he was worldly. They were thinking, how worldly are you to be thinking that way? And he's thinking, well, how do we develop? We can't just rely. And they're like, no, Swami, you've gone worldly. You have to earn money. You're thinking about money. You're thinking about all these things. And he's thinking, well, how do we grow to serve? And there's a certainly world to element, but the worldly thought that he was thinking wasn't, oh, I need money to make this place beautiful. It was, I need this money to share in this message that we've been given by Yogananda. We need that effort behind what we do. How many people in a worldly and a churchly sense go, hey, I'm going to turn up every Sunday. I'm doing my bit. How many people have pictures of Yogananda, Christ, all our things everywhere? But that, yes, they're a good reminder, but that doesn't give me freedom. And that's the same in meditation. If we're sitting in meditation and we're thinking about all the things that are going to make me better in this world to help me do this, it's that wrong attitude. It's what happened with Judas. It's the downward pull. It's the downward pull of the worldly things that change it. And I love this beautiful description of that. If we think about this, we've been given this glass vessel by God that's surrounded by light, surrounded by all these amazing things. But every time we have a pull that's down the other way, oh, I just need that silence. That thing's going to give me to it. We blow up a balloon. Every time we think a worldly thing helps me achieve this, I blow up a balloon. It's a negative pull. We're pulling up and opening a balloon. So soon we're in this glass vessel that is surrounded by balloons. And we wonder why we can't see the light. We wonder why we can't see the vessels that are around us. But every time we go inward and think of God in that way, think of God in service, think of God in everything that we do, we start getting rid of those balloons. We start emptying those balloons and we start seeing glimpses of light that's always there. We're the ones that have created this outward pull. We've created the shade, the coverings that don't allow the light in. And that's why this beautiful affirmation this week is, help me take those things away from me. Help me recognize that every time I've blown up a balloon, help me recognize that every time I've created this, I want to deflate it. I want to go inward and upward, and I want to give everything that I have to God and know that God is the true source of that joy, of that happiness, of those things, so that therefore I can cyclically, and it's the symbol, the joy symbol, I can come back around with that joy and serve in the most appropriate way. I can bring that pure joy, pure energy and back in everything that we do. I'm going to finish with just a beautiful reading from Whispers of Eternity, and it is by Paramhansa Yogananda. It is satisfy my soul hunger. O all-pervading spirit, the breeze of thy inspiration has removed every cloud from my heart. The firmament of my mind is now clear. Purified, I behold only thee everywhere. The sunshine of thy joy spreads rapidly to the farthest shores of my being. After long ages of hunger, I feed on thy light, by thy grace, and by my constant wakefulness in thee. May this joy be mine forever, forever, and forever. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Om.
Thank you. So one of the lovely connections between this week's affirmation and our topic, which is why do devotees fall, which sneak peek next week is why do devotees rise. So you get to get the solutions from next week's reading as well. But I'm sure all of us can see the connection. We fall when we aren't truthful about where we're at spiritually and the things that we're doing that are drawing us into that satanic pull, which is, as we know from our path, it's not like God in the clouds and devil is Satan. It's more like anything that draws us into the delusion of, Maya is the word that we have from Sanskrit and from India. And it just means like things that are measured. Did you all know that? It's not just delusion, it's the measurer. So that means it's a comparison. So whenever you think, oh, that is not good, oh, but that is better, or that house is nice, but that one is not as nice, or anything like that, that draws an outward feature that has, up, down, opposites, similarities, whatever it is, it's drawing you away from that oneness. And so to introspect with all of its power means how can you perceive self-honestly things that you might be doing that are drawing you into comparisons or the measuring or thinking of things outside of the present. It's all of that factoring in of what are the thoughts, as Yogananda said, it's about our thoughts more than anything else. And so one of the things that I thought would be kind of nice to just talk about briefly today is, why do we do this every week? Why do we show up to Sunday service or Sunday satsang on a Saturday? Why do we do that? And why do we have readings to do different topics and an affirmation to practice? It's so that we use them. It's not just like we watch for an hour and then we go off into the week and get busy and forget. Although it's really nice that we have a weekly routine where we can be brought back to our center. It's so that we use this week coming to try these things out and really notice. So, of course, we want to think, well, how can I introspect about things that are making my consciousness fall? So, whatever it might be, whether it's, negativity or I always love this phrase from the Bhagavad Gita, the harping spirit. It's a bit like the Australian version of whinging. And so these are the things that, once you start practicing introspection, you can say, that is not serving my freedom. That's as simple as it is. Is that helping me be free? Is that helping the Kundalini rise? Like, that's going to make me free in bliss. What do I want? To complain or be in bliss? But we have to introspect, because if we start to become aware, what's the famous yogic quote? Awareness precedes control. I know all of you know that one. And so to be able to control our thoughts, we have to become aware of them. And a lot of you are familiar with, those facts about how many thoughts we have each day that are negative. It's like a 300-to-1 ratio of negative to positive. It's some really high amount. And we also have a tendency to favor negative memories. That means we have to work so hard to stay positive and to stay in tune and then to live that. And so sadly, the reason that we're given the story of Judas, well, it's actually from love, right? It's a loving warning. And even Yogananda says it later with the Nirvikalpa Samadhi is like only time when you're actually free and you don't need to worry again about having the ego slip back in. But you can see that even Judas had that slip. And one of the things that Swamiji says is that, at first the path is really challenging, but then it becomes effortless, easy. That's when you reach Nirvikalpa Samadhi, though. That's that phase of cosmic consciousness and awareness where the ego has dissolved into the ocean of God and God's bliss, versus okay, I had a cosmic experience, but I'm coming back into this body, and now my ego is very powerful. That's almost like what we're being shown with Judas. He thought he knew better. And that's egoic, that he felt he knew better than Mary. He felt he knew better than Jesus about what they should be doing with the money and the ointment. But he was missing the point, which is what Patanjali said is, second to coming to the practice of yoga is realize when you're missing the point. So that is a really good way to laugh when we're introspecting. And so as we go about our week, just coming back to that thought, let's think of how we introspect and what that means to you in your week. Does that mean you might chat with a friend and just talk about things that are going on? Does it mean everything you project as something you see in somebody else as a criticism is actually coming from you? We all love that one. You say, oh, everything's a mirror. And then you say, oh, she's doing something stupid, just like me. So all of these tools, and again, that laughter is really important. They're so that we rewire our brain, which is a vehicle for consciousness and thought. But guess what? What if you're watering the weeds, are they going to grow more than your roses? Yes. So every time you let a pattern keep going, it keeps growing with energy and it has its own magnetism. And then that becomes a karmic pattern that you might take forever to get over. We don't want to do that anymore. So the best thing to do is introspect, see the pattern, then you can nip it in the bud and you can get that weed from the root. Then you can do what Yogananda said and not let it happen again, because you were aware and you controlled that life force and you said, this plant is not going to get any more sunshine, energy, whatever it is, thoughts, power. Nope. And move on to the next lesson. And the other thing Swamiji said, which we were listening to in the talks that the other ministers have given over the years on this week, is just Swamiji said, remember too, at this stage in your soul's journey, you're close to the end. So you're not working on a lot of little stuff. You're likely to have come in for a big lesson. And he said, and often that's the one that you'll be like, no, I don't need to worry about that. But he said, this is the ones that you got to see it. So you want to look at your life as a pattern and then try to sort out, what is this? Why is this recurring? And then really charge your will with, I want to be free. I don't want to do this anymore, Divine Mother. So not only are we introspecting and becoming aware, but now you got to call on the Guru's power and magnetism and grace and start offering those things. So if you are, noticing things like, okay, I have a tendency to complain and not do a solution, or I have a tendency to get in a mood around this sort of trigger, whatever it might be. But then say, Master, I don't want this anymore. I just want to be free. I don't want to keep defending it. I don't want my ego to keep defending this. I'm done. And it could be journaling. It could be an affirmation once you start to know, but you get to choose because we have this amazing path with so many options and tools. And then from there, you can be looking back years from now and say, wow, that introspection is quite something. But if you think about it, what do all the Himalayan cave yogis do? They're meditating and they're going into their center. And that is where you can clearly see. It's not easy to know what you're doing when you're too busy. When you get hurried and you get in your, certain part of your brain even, that's when they take hold and you're not acting from your superconscious. That's why that's in the prayer. You need to be in the superconscious to see clearly. So if we were to give ourselves a process, get into the superconscious. Meditation is a great way to do that. And then from there, introspecting, allowing things to come to the surface, prayer, and be like Mary, anoint with the best part of you and all of your potential and offer it to your guru, offer it to God. That's the beauty of this path, is we talk about the power of love and how that draws grace to help us see things and to then get them changed. So we cooperate with that. And then we won't even recognize the beautiful garden that is growing from inside of us until somebody says, wow, what beauty. And you just offer that back because you did it with help. You gave it your best, but you know who's behind every bit of the beauty that has become yourself. And it's a beautiful thing. And so we have a beautiful song to listen to that really is an example of the soul and its journey back to this knowing of who and what we really are. Not that one.
I have been roaming, taken by thee, who hast seen me groping, hardly ever answered me. I shall be roaming, bursting all the boundaries of heart.